The first time I heard it, I thought it was a joke. We were standing in our living room, the same one we had painted together 3 summers ago, the same room where she had once danced, barefoot on the hardwood floors, while I clapped off beat just to make her laugh. Family filled the house. Her parents, my sister, a few close friends. It was supposed to be a small dinner to talk about the future. That's what she told me. I didn't expect the future to exclude me. She stood near the fireplace, wearing the blue dress I bought her last anniversary. Her hands trembled slightly, but her smile was steady. Too steady. I have something important to share, she said. Everyone leaned in. I stood beside her, close enough to smell the jasmine perfume she always wore on special occasions. I remember thinking how beautiful she looked, how lucky I was. Then she reached for another man's hand. He stepped forward from behind the couch, calm, confident, dressed like he belonged there. My wife and I. She paused, and the correction came too late. I. The room shifted. She swallowed. I'm engaged. Silence. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, the kind that presses against your chest. My sister laughed nervously. Engaged? Wait, what? Her mother's smile faded first, and then someone asked the question I couldn't. To who? She squeezed his hand. To Daniel. Daniel. The name echoed in my skull like a dropped glass shattering in slow motion. I looked at him properly for the first time. He wasn't unfamiliar. I'd seen him before, office events, company gatherings. The colleague who texted late about projects. My wife didn't look at me. She looked at him. I didn't plan for it to happen like this, she continued softly. But I've found someone who understands me. Someone who makes me feel seen. Seen. I almost laughed at the irony. For 7 years, I had memorized the way she took her coffee, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the way she hated thunderstorms but pretended to love them because I did. But she had found someone who saw her. Her father stood up. What about your husband? That word, husband, seemed to embarrass her. She finally turned to me. Her eyes didn't hold guilt. They held resolve. We've been growing apart, she said carefully. You know that. No. I didn't. Yes, we argued sometimes. Yes, work had been exhausting. Yes, I had been distracted lately. But growing apart? I thought we were just tired. Not finished. I was going to tell you privately, she added, almost as an afterthought. But I didn't want to hide anymore. Daniel shifted beside her, placing a protective hand on her back. Protective. In my house. I deserve happiness, she said quietly. The words felt rehearsed. And maybe they were. I looked around the room, at the faces that couldn't meet mine, at the home that suddenly felt borrowed, at the woman who once promised forever. You're still married, I said. It wasn't loud, but it was steady. She didn't deny it. Instead, she lifted her left hand. A ring. Not the one I gave her. A new one. Brighter. Bigger. Final. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. She hadn't just fallen in love with someone else. She had already left. And I had been the only one still living in our marriage. The house felt different after that night. Not louder. Not broken. Just empty. Even though the furniture was still there. Even though her perfume still lingered in the air. Even though her shoes were still neatly placed by the door. I stood in the living room long after everyone had left. My wife, no, the woman who was still legally my wife, had walked out with him, as if nothing sacred had just been shattered. The engagement ring on her finger had sparkled under the chandelier, and I couldn't stop seeing it. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, cruel and bright, as if the world didn't understand what had happened. She was in the kitchen, calm, composed, making coffee, as if she hadn't announced her engagement to another man 12 hours earlier. I leaned against the doorway. You're serious? She didn't turn around. Yes. No apology. No explanation. Just one word. The sound of the coffee machine felt louder than her voice. Why? I asked. That was the only question that mattered. She finally faced me. There was no hatred in her eyes. No anger. Just distance. "You were never here," she said softly. The words hit harder than the announcement. "I was building our future." "You were building yours," she corrected. I had spent years working late nights, expanding the business, investing, traveling, closing deals. I thought success would secure our happiness. I thought sacrifice meant love. But somewhere along the way, she stopped waiting. "He was there," she said. 3 words. That's all it took to explain everything. Flashbacks began attacking my mind. Missed anniversaries, short phone calls, unread messages, her sitting alone at dinner tables, birthdays I attended through video calls. I told myself she understood. Maybe she did. Until she didn't. "Are you in love with him?" I asked. Silence. That silence answered more than words ever could. She wasn't confused. She wasn't manipulated. She had chosen. "You're still married," I reminded her. "I know," she replied. And that scared me. Because she wasn't denying it. She wasn't hiding. She was simply done. He was someone from her volunteer work. A school coordinator. Ordinary. Calm. Present. Everything I hadn't been. I imagined him walking her home, listening to her stories, remembering small details about her day, things I used to do when we first fell in love, before success became my obsession. "I'm filing for divorce," she said quietly. There it was. The final blow. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just inevitable. But something inside me didn't break this time. It hardened. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with realization. Love isn't built on grand gestures. It survives in small moments. And I had abandoned those. "You already replaced me," I said. "No," she shook her head. "I replaced the loneliness." That sentence stayed with me long after she walked upstairs. I wasn't competing with another man. I was competing with the emptiness I created. That night, I slept alone in our bedroom for the first time. The silence was unbearable. But for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about business meetings. I wasn't thinking about profit margins. I was thinking about her, about how easily someone else stepped into the space I left empty. The storm had passed. Now came the quiet. And quiet is where truth echoes the loudest. I didn't know yet whether I was going to fight for her, or finally let her go. But for the first time since the announcement, I understood why she left. And understanding hurt more than betrayal. The divorce papers arrived 3 days later. Not by mail. By her hand. She placed them on the dining table, the same table where we once planned vacations, argued about paint colors, laughed over burnt pasta. Now it held a different kind of future. "I didn't want to drag this out," she said quietly. There was no anger in her voice. Just finality. I looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. "You've thought this through," I said. "Yes." That hurt more than hesitation ever could. That night, I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't accuse her of betrayal. I went to my office, closed the door, and stared at the reflection of a man I barely recognized. For years, I believed providing was enough. Money, stability, growth. But presence? That was a currency I stopped investing in. And someone else did. The next morning, I signed the papers. Not because I didn't care, but because love that needs chains isn't love. When I handed them back to her, she seemed surprised. "You're not going to fight me?" she asked. I held her gaze steadily. "If I have to fight to keep you, I already lost you." Something flickered in her eyes. Doubt? Regret? I couldn't tell. Word spread quickly among mutual friends. Most expected me to collapse, to drink, to spiral, to blame her publicly. Instead, I did something no one predicted. I changed. Not for revenge. Not for show. For clarity. I stepped back from the company's expansion, cancelled 2 overseas deals, delegated what I used to control obsessively. For the first time in years, I left work before sunset. The house felt quieter each day as she slowly packed her things. Every missing item left an echo. Her books, her framed photos, her winter coat. But something else was happening too. The emptiness no longer felt like punishment. It felt like space. One evening, I found myself at the park we used to visit when we were first married. Back when we had nothing. Back when a shared coffee felt like luxury. I sat on the same bench, and I realized something uncomfortable. I had fallen in love with ambition. Not just her. Success became my identity. She became part of my life. Instead of my life becoming something we built together. A week before she was set to move out officially, Daniel came to the house. He stood at the doorway like a man trying to measure another. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," he said. I studied him carefully. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't smug. He looked steady. "Take care of her," I replied calmly. His surprise was obvious. "You're not angry." I was, I admitted. But anger doesn't change what I neglected. He hesitated. "She still respects you." That word lingered. Respects. Not loves. That night, she approached me one last time in the hallway. "You've changed," she said softly. Maybe I finally slowed down enough to see. She looked at me differently now. Not with distance, but with confusion. "You're calmer," she added, because I stopped fighting what already left. Silence filled the space between us, and for the first time since the announcement, the power dynamic shifted. I wasn't the desperate husband. I wasn't the abandoned man. I was simply someone who understood his mistakes, and wasn't afraid to face them. "You deserved more of me," I told her honestly. Her eyes shimmered slightly. That's all I ever wanted. There it was. Not money. Not status. Not perfection. Presence. The night before she was supposed to move out, she stood at the door of our bedroom longer than usual, as if questioning something, as if wondering whether certainty still felt certain. And for the first time since she announced her engagement, I saw something unexpected in her eyes. Not guilt, not pride, but doubt. And doubt is far more dangerous than anger, because doubt means the story isn't finished yet. The house was almost empty. Her side of the closet had become a hollow space of wooden hangers and faint perfume. The bookshelf looked uneven without her novels. Even the kitchen felt unfamiliar, like it belonged to strangers who once borrowed our life. Tomorrow, she would move out. Not temporarily. Not to think. Permanently. I expected the night to be dramatic, tearful, angry. Instead, it was quiet. Too quiet. She stood in the bedroom doorway again, just like the night before, but this time she stepped inside. "I can't sleep," she said softly. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, sleeves rolled up, the lamp casting a warm circle of light between us. "Big day tomorrow," I replied. She didn't smile. She looked around the room slowly, at the walls we painted, at the window where we once watched storms roll in, at the empty spaces where her photos used to hang. "It feels strange," she whispered. 7 years. Reduced to boxes. "Memories don't fit in boxes," I said. She looked at me differently after that, not as the man she was leaving, but as the man she once loved. "Daniel rented an apartment downtown," she said, almost testing the words out loud. I nodded. "That's good. You don't want to know anything else?" I paused. "I don't need to." That answer unsettled her, because months ago, I would have demanded details. I would have fought. Now, I was calm. And calm is terrifying when someone expects chaos. She sat beside me on the bed. Close, but not touching. "I thought you'd try to stop me," she admitted. "Would that change anything?" Silence. Her fingers twisted together in her lap. "I don't know," she whispered. And that was the crack. Not certainty. Not love. Uncertainty. "I used to beg you to slow down," she said. "To come home earlier. To sit with me without checking emails." Her voice trembled slightly now. "And I thought if I pushed hard enough, you'd notice what you were losing." I did lose it, I said quietly, by the time I realized. Her eyes shimmered. "You're different now." I had to be. For me. No, I answered honestly. For myself. That hit harder than anything else. Because growth that isn't about winning someone back is real. She stood and walked toward the window. The city lights flickered outside in soft gold and white. Do you love me? She asked suddenly. The question wasn't fragile. It was desperate. Yes, I said without hesitation. She closed her eyes briefly. Then why aren't you fighting? I stood up slowly. Because I won't cage someone who wants the door open. The air shifted. And for the first time, tears fell down her cheeks. Not loud sobs. Not dramatic collapse. Just quiet tears of someone confronting her own choices. I thought I was choosing happiness, she whispered. Maybe you were, I replied gently. She turned toward me. But why does it feel like I'm losing something instead? Because love doesn't disappear just because you decide to walk away. Because history doesn't vanish when a new ring appears. Because sometimes the person you needed becomes the person you outgrow. And sometimes they grow too late. A knock at the door interrupted us. Daniel. He was early. She wiped her tears quickly, steadying herself. I watched her carefully. This was it. The final crossroad. She walked toward the hallway. Then stopped. Her hand hovered over the door handle. And for a split second, she looked back at me. Not confused. Not angry. But searching. As if waiting for one last reason. One last word. One last sign. I didn't move. I didn't beg. I didn't reach for her. Because love given freely is the only love that stays. She opened the door. Daniel stood there, calm as ever. But this time, she didn't step out immediately. She hesitated. And hesitation changes everything. The night wasn't over yet. And neither was her decision. For the first time since she announced her engagement, the choice wasn't simple anymore. And tomorrow wouldn't look the way she expected. The door was open. Daniel stood outside under the porch light, hands in his coat pockets, patient as ever. The night air carried a quiet chill, brushing past her hair as it fell loosely over her shoulders. She didn't step out. Not yet. Her fingers tightened slightly around the door handle. Behind her, I stood still in the hallway. Not approaching. Not retreating. Just waiting. Not for her to choose me, but for her to choose honestly. Daniel's voice was calm. Are you ready? 3 simple words. She had been ready for weeks. Ready when she bought the ring. Ready when she told our families. Ready when she handed me divorce papers. But now, her voice didn't come. She looked back at me again. Not dramatically. Not desperately. Just searching. And for the first time since all this began, I saw fear in her eyes. Not fear of me. Fear of regret. Daniel noticed it too. You okay? He asked gently. She nodded, but she didn't move. I thought I wanted certainty, she said quietly. More to herself than to either of us. I thought I wanted someone steady. Someone present. Her voice trembled slightly. But I never stopped loving you. The words hung in the air. Daniel's posture stiffened, just slightly. I didn't react. Because love confessed. At the edge of departure isn't. The same as love chosen in clarity. You said you were lonely, I reminded her softly. That I wasn't here. You weren't, she admitted. I know. Silence stretched between us. And now? I asked. She looked down at the engagement ring on her finger. It glittered under the porch light. Bright. New. Temporary. I don't know anymore, she whispered. Daniel stepped back slightly, giving her space. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. And somehow, that made the moment heavier. I don't want to be someone you're unsure about, he said quietly. If you're staying because you're afraid, that's not love either. The truth hit her from both sides. She wasn't choosing between 2 men. She was choosing between comfort and history, between fresh beginnings and unfinished endings, between the man I used to be and the man I had become. I stepped forward slowly, stopping a few feet away from her. If you walk out that door, I said calmly, I won't chase you. Her breathing shook. But if you stay, It won't be because I finally changed. It'll be because you decided we are worth rebuilding. Not returning. Not rewinding. Rebuilding. Different. Stronger. Intentional. Tears slipped down her face freely now. Not from confusion. From clarity forming. She slid the ring off her finger slowly. The small metallic sound as it left her hand felt louder. Then the argument that never happened. Daniel watched, understanding settling in before the words did. "I'm sorry," she said to him softly. He nodded once. No drama. No bitterness. Just acceptance. "I hope you find what you're looking for," he replied. And then he walked away into the night. The door remained open, but she didn't step through it. Instead, she closed it gently. The click echoed through the house. Final. She turned toward me fully this time. No ring. No hesitation. "I don't want easy," she said through tears. "I want real, even if it's hard." I walked toward her slowly. "Real takes work," I warned gently. "I know. And it won't look like before. I don't want before." For the first time in weeks, we stood in the same emotional space. Not one chasing. Not one leaving. Just two people who finally understood what they almost lost. I pulled her into my arms carefully. Not triumphantly. Not desperately. Just honestly. She held onto me tightly. And for the first time since the announcement, there was no third presence between us. No shadow. No substitute. Just truth. The house still felt empty. But it didn't feel abandoned anymore. Because this time, she didn't leave. She chose. And love chosen freely is stronger than love assumed.